Thanks everyone for jumping on this afternoon. It's already lunchtime, gosh. So thanks for joining today's webinar. We've got a few people that have jumped on. I might just give it a minute or so more, couple of seconds just to see if anybody else is going to join. So it shouldn't be too long and we will get ready to kick off.
How are people enjoying the Beatles as a starting music? Let us know in the chat. Right, Here Comes the Sun. We think it embodies Lumiant.
Just before everyone starts rubbishing the song, just know it was my wedding dance song. So please be gentle.
Are you happy to kick off, Mark?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right, excellent. So thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. Today's webinar is on the enhanced Lumiant experience. My name is Elise Little. I'm the Customer Success Executive here at Lumiant. And we're also joined by Mark Ackroyd, who is Head of Advice, Delivery and Strategy. And we also have Ash Plaskett joining us today as well, Head of Customer. Before we get started, I just wanted to go through a few housekeeping items. So today's session is being recorded and it will be available and we'll be sharing it in the coming days as well. As Ash mentioned, we have a chat functionality. So please, we want to make this session as interactive as possible. And although we'll have a Q&A session at the end, as questions come to your mind, if something pops up, please shout out, put it in the chat, and we'll be going through and addressing these as they come up. And that way we can just make it a bit more fun and interactive as well. So just to give that a bit of a test run for the participants that we have on board today. Yep, perfect, Ash. If you could just please type in your name, let us know where you're joining from, and that way we can start to get the chat kicked off. So for the chat functionality, if you are new to Zoom as well, it's just right on the bottom there. You'll see the little chat with the question mark. Not the question mark, sorry, speech bubble. Hey, Anthony, thanks for joining us. Nice to see you. All right, excellent. So yeah. Hi, Danielle. Thanks for jumping on. And so, yeah, thanks. Please keep that in mind. We want to use that as much as we can throughout the session. So please keep jumping in, putting in some comments, putting in some questions. We really want to get the most out of that as well. So let's jump in and kick this off today. So why we're actually having this webinar today. And the reason being is because we often hear that at times the hardest part of using Lumiant is working out how and where Lumiant sort of best fits into your process. So everyone has their own process. It's just, where does Lumiant actually slot into that? So in today's session, what we are going to take you through is why mapping your client journey is important. And we're also going to talk about what you must consider as you develop your own experience. We'll go through how Lumiant can support you in delivering an enhanced client experience across every touch point, and also how to use the client experience journey in your business. So the session's going to go for 60 minutes and we'll have time at the end for questions and answers to cover off any questions that may come up. But as mentioned, please just jump in the chat, put them in as we go, and that way we can just, while we're on the topic, it's easier for us to jump in and address. So the aim of this webinar is to really help you and empower you to map your end-to-end client experience and see where Lumiant seamlessly fits within your process. So at the end of this session, we're also going to provide you with not only the recording of the webinar, we're going to give you a blank template, and it's a Lumiant client journey template. So you can actually start to map out your own process, and a bit of a draft example to help you along the way as well. So that's just a bit of a takeaway for jumping on this webinar today. So let's get started. And what I'm going to do, Mark?
Yes.
As I've mentioned, we have you joining us today. So thank you for jumping on and thank you for joining us.
No problem.
To help kick off the session, it would be really great to start with a question that I feel that might actually be on some of the minds of our attendees today. What is a client journey?
Yeah, so a really important question and probably the big elephant in the room. I think the term client journey, it can actually be a little bit polarizing at times because if anyone's ever worked in corporates, it probably sounds like one of these, corporate terms. It's a bit wishy-washy and a bit fluffy. And to be fair, it somewhat is. However, that doesn't sort of do it justice in terms of how important we believe it is for any client-facing business. So, we talk about, or we talk to advice professionals across accounting and financial planning. This is something that's super important to them. And in speaking with some of the consultants that we work with, people like Elixir or Advisor Global Alpha, one of the things that they often look out for in the businesses that they work with as well. And the reason it's so important, and probably why or what is a client journey, is that it helps a practice document an end-to-end process for their advice experience. So I know our audience will go between financial advisors and accounting. So just from a terminology perspective, when I say advice experience, I don't just mean a financial advisor experience, because obviously accountants give advice as well. I'm talking about the end-to-end experience when you produce advice. So I mentioned, it's an end-to-end process, but I think what a client journey map is so much more than just a process. So what I mean by that is, when you do a great client journey map for your practice, no doubt there is process in there, because process is what makes the engine go and what makes everyone know what buttons to click, what emails to send, what conversations to have. But what it is a experience map. So it takes the client at the front of mind and puts the client at the center of what your process might look like, and starts you by thinking about, at each step of my advice experience. So we know we've got natural steps in a meeting process. At each step, what is it that I believe is most on my client's mind? And then you work backwards from there, because if you can think about what's on your client's mind, a client journey map will then help you align all your soft skills. So how you present, how you talk, what questions you ask. It will also help align any supporting templates. So whether that be emails, doc templates, whatever you use to facilitate the conversation. And it also helps align your processes. So who needs to do what and when, all to address what you believe is most on your client's mind. So at least it's a long-winded way to answer a really tough question, which is, a client journey is an end-to-end process that's centered in the ideal client experience for your practice.
Perfect. And so what I've taken out of that myself is just that, it's important to have the client front of mind while you are thinking about the journey and mapping that out. And also the journey starts, right from that initial engagement with the client. And it keeps going right through until that client might cease the relationship, with you as well. So Mark, can you tell me why the client journey is actually so important? And if this is something that a practice or a participant joining us today hasn't done as yet, why this is something that they should really start to consider?
Yeah, absolutely. This can be another long answer, but it's because I think there's so many different aspects of a individual business that a client journey touches. So let me address the first elephant in the room. Is you could probably get away, and many people have gotten away with not doing one for their practice. We've traditionally had in the advice industry, especially on the advisor side, one-man bands where, the advisor is the person that owns all the IP and knows how their process works insides and out. And that's just it, right? I don't need to map that. I know how it works. However, we know more and more advice firms are getting bigger. Accounting firms are getting bigger. There's more people, more specialists, more support staff. So you start to get more and more removed from the individual who potentially owns all the IP or owns that client experience. So whilst we probably as an industry could have gotten away without doing one, now we're seeing more and more as businesses scale up or businesses start to transition their advice philosophy or their client value proposition. They're needing to go and sit down and bring their team together to talk about it and sort it out, so that there's a one practice mentality around how they deal with their clients. the other elephant in the room I want to acknowledge before I talk about why it's so important to businesses is that it's hard work. So as I talk through some of the things that go into a great client journey, you're naturally going to feel and think, geez, Mark, there's a lot in this. And yeah, that's okay. There is, providing advice, whether it be as an accountant or an advisor, is a very complex process. You've got to balance the ideal experience you want to give a client with the advice opportunities that you think you want to educate them on and bring them into. And then not to mention, you've obviously got regulatory or compliance overlay that you've got to tick off. There's a lot going on to bring a client experience to life. So to map it all out end to end and get a holistic client view or a practice view is really hard work. So if you're one of those people in the camp that hasn't done it already, that's okay. I just wanted to sort of get those two off the bat and done. So why is it so important then? Well, I've mentioned it a couple of times. Scale and efficiency is probably the first burning platform I think that the industry is dealing with, and why a client journey can sort of help. We've seen obviously advice firms getting bigger, taking on more clients, bringing in more advisors. Same with accounting firms. We know that they're getting bigger, looking to grow their revenue streams, and everyone's looking for that competitive advantage of getting bigger and bigger and doing things really well. So the challenge with doing that, as I mentioned at the start, is that you can lose scale and efficiency if you don't have clear processes. And as I mentioned, it's not just about process. The other thing you want to scale up is the experience a client feels. And what I mean by that is that a really healthy way of thinking about it is no matter which advice professional in your business a client may interact with at different points throughout the journey, they should feel like it's consistent with the specialist that they've already spoken to. So whether that be an advisor going on leave and another advisor picking up the file, whether it be your client support staff, pre-positioning an appointment or questionnaires or paperwork, they should all know how they want the client to feel and what they should be doing that's in line with the client experience. So the client at the other end can feel, oh yeah, this is exactly what ABC Financial Planning or ABC Accountancy do here, and I can understand that. By doing that, obviously, and by getting every team member on board, you get those in-house efficiencies. Everyone knows what they need to do, when they need to do it, and how they need to do it. It then obviously gives you a bit of an opportunity to bring up some capability in your team. We see this in practices that have either inherited another practice or they've brought on a junior sort of specialist, whether it be an advisor or an accountant, that they're looking for ways to, how do I get that person up to speed with the way we do things here? So having a journey map will help you understand, well, what are the key capabilities I need that person to do at different steps of my process, whether it be my discovery meeting, my review meeting, whatever that might be. So it maps all that. And it also then helps you create all the systems around it so that junior advice professional can turn up and have everything going in their favor so that they can deliver the skills that you expect them to deliver. By getting those efficiencies, no doubt, it has impact on cost. One of the key costs that we find when you do a client journey map is actual cost savings in things like your tech stack. Because as you go through your client experience journey and go, right, I need a client to feel like this, therefore I need to do this, therefore I need X system to do that, you might find there are systems that you pay for that you don't use. I mean, the flip side of that is sometimes you might go, gee, I actually need a new system that does that. And that's okay as well. The last point that I'll make, just to reiterate the extreme importance of doing this, is that it gives you clarity and engagement for your entire team. One of the things that we see in practices that have a great client journey is that everyone in that practice knows exactly what they can do to help make a client's experience super special. And it engages and binds the team together so that they're all fighting for the same cause to bring, in a Lumiant experience, values-based advice to life for that client.
Perfect, thank you. And so you mentioned when you were explaining, why the client journey is so important, that there are going to be certain steps that will take place along the way. And, right from when the client, will pick up the phone and each of those touch points along the journey, and that it is important that, everyone in the team knows what they're doing. And so that each client that goes through this experience all has that same experience along the way. So when you are starting to map out your client journey, what are the things that you must consider as you're developing your own experience?
Yeah, we'll go through some of this in the template and as we build one out together on this webinar. But high level and in some order of priority, you would end up considering first and foremost, what are the client thoughts and feelings that are going through their head as they move through each stage of your experience. So if I take a pretty standard experience, you might go, there's a pre-vet call, a discovery meeting or an initial meeting. There might be a strategy meeting or a second meeting. What are the things that you think as a client moves through those phases is on their mind? How are they feeling? Are they anxious? Are they confident? What are they looking for? Are they looking for information? Are they looking for a steadying hand? Are they looking for someone to challenge them? Answering all those questions first, then help you sit back and go, right, what are the people capabilities do I need? So who are the people that I need in that meeting? What are the things I need them to be saying? What are the questions I might need to ask? What are the things that I need to show them so that I can address what I believe are those thoughts and feelings? You then move down from there into your tech. So what's the technology or the tools or templates or whatever that might be that helps facilitate the people capabilities that I now believe are important? It wouldn't be a client experience or an advice process without mentioning you probably want to overlay your compliance requirements as well. So what's the documentation or steps that I need to take in that experience, knowing how my client is feeling so that I can still meet my compliance obligations. And the last one to consider, and we'll spend a little bit of time on the end, but this is where it all starts to fall down if you don't get this quite right, is once I decide my client journey, what's the change management piece to this? So how do I make sure that my practice has absolute clarity and transparency around what they need to do, when they need to do it, and how they need to do it, so that you get that sort of whole practice buy-in and that whole team buy-in, so that everyone from your support staff, your paraplanners, your on-site and off-site support, to all your advisors or accountants in your practice know exactly what they need to do to make the big client machine work.
Yeah. And I think you raise a really good point there when you say that it provides greater clarity and transparency across the practice, especially that way. It's got a clear way, it has a guide or a journey so that everybody can actually see what they're working towards or what they're achieving, and also how that's going to impact on the client experience as well.
Totally.
So it would be really interesting to understand from our audience that are joining today, who has actually put a client journey experience or who has mapped one out, or if you currently have, thank you, Ash, for chucking up the poll, and or if you currently have anything in place that you're using. So perfect. So we've got one yes. So yeah, if you could jump into the poll, just put in yes or no, where you're up to in your client journey, if you've ever created one before. So we've got a yes, a no. Any other responses to come through? Started, perfect. So you're starting to get there. Any other responses? We've kind of got a split across all three at the moment.
We typically find this, especially the started but never finished. This is one of those ones that, you always want to do, the value in it, but it gets really complex really quick. So, there's obvious day-to-day things that can get in the way. So hopefully today goes a bit of a way at helping you complete it.
Yeah. And it'd be interesting to know for the participants that have said no, what has actually stopped you from mapping out your experience? Is there a particular reason? If you could just pop a quick response in the chat. And also it'd be interesting for the people that have clicked yes, Has this had any impact, or what impact has this actually had on the practice? Do you update it often? It'd be interesting, if you are using Lumiant, if you've actually gone in and updated it since. So if you could just pop quick 1-2 word answer into the chat, that'd be fantastic.
Oh, that's
perfect,
great.
Veronica.
Yeah,
that's a really good answer. So Veronica said, never even thought of it, but unconsciously it's there, but needs documented it. Yeah, you're probably doing the same thing each day, but having that bit of clarity would be really helpful. So that's really good to know. Any other comments? Any other responses?
Oh, great, Danielle.
Yeah, agree. So Danielle said, yeah, having it mapped out has given the team clarity and no missteps. So exactly, you kind of know what you're doing and when you need to do what, and that way it's not going to impact on the client as well. Perfect. So as mentioned, it's the reason why we are bringing this through to you is that we often do get the feedback that people purchase Lumiant, they come on board, they go back into their practice, they start to use it and then realize it's just not quite fitting into their process, or they're wanting it to do something in particular, maybe like talking to other software. So that's why we thought we would have this to try and help you with a bit of a tool and a template. As you might be sort of thinking, I've got this great asset, but where does it actually fit in with all of the processes? So to help out with this, I'm going to invite Mark to go through, have a bit of a chat, go through things that you must consider when you are actually developing your journey. So Mark, I might pass it over to you.
Yeah, no problem.
If you can just sort of provide it or guide us a little bit on information on, I guess, what you should consider, on what you might need to think about and address when you're starting to map out your client journey.
Yep. Yeah, no worries. So here's one we prepared earlier. I've always wanted to be able to do that. So what we're going to do as a bit of a unit, as a bit of a webinar team, is I'm going to take you through a journey map template that we use here at Lumiant. Similar experience to yourselves, where we want to know, how do we best think a client moves through either an advice process or an accounting process so that we can get things right, like our product design or our supporting materials, like emails that go before the Your Life survey, stuff like that. So this is our sort of template that we use. And whilst there's many phases in a relationship or an advice process, we're only going to focus on 3 of them today because just the nature of the webinar. I can speak personally about this for hours on end, but we're going to do a little bit of an example in about 15 minutes. So let me walk you through the template first, and then we might have a crack at filling it out together as a team. And Elise mentioned at the start, this is a template that we will then give to you. So we'll give you the one that we do together. We'll give you a bit of a finished example of these 3 phases, and we'll give you a blank template so that you can go and take this, and if you've not done one before, you can start to use it, or Veronica, if you want to pick this up and use this to take it and finish your example, then be our guest. We know that helping you map out your end-to-end client experience is only going to help you figure out where you can find Lumiant slotting into your processes, because we know that it's an enabler of the experience that you want to provide. So firstly, let me talk you through the template. There's a bit going on here, but as I said, it's complex, worthwhile once you understand it. The first thing we've got up the top here is our client persona. So client journey mapping works really well when you've got a particular end client in mind. So typically the firms we work with know that they're dealing with a certain type of client, or they're building for a certain type of client. Some people have 2 or 3 types of clients they like to work with. That's okay too. You might want to see if you can merge them together, or you might want to do something a little bit different for each one. Up to you on how you want to do it. But you can see here, the client that we've got in mind is a pretty generic one for today's webinar. We're calling them a new prospect, pre-retiree couple between the ages of 45 and 65. Let's split the difference. Let's say they're 55. So they're brand new to advice. They've just gone through the initial advice process. And in this example, we're going to talk through these 3 phases. So If you follow where I'm at on my cursor, I'm at the top line here, phases. Here you want to step out what's each meeting phase or advice process or accounting process phase that we're talking about, because naturally there's a phase process to all of this. So in this prospect example, we're talking about the onboarding year. Now that's pretty generic terminology, but let me clarify it. We call this the year after the clients received their first initial piece of advice, and the 12 months before they turn up to their progress meeting or their first annual review. So it's that awkward time in between getting their first piece of advice and the time that you review it. We're just, for the sake of today, going to call it the onboarding year. Then the client moves to the progress meeting phase. They're going in for their review. And then this last terminology might not be terminology that you're familiar with, because it could be our language, but we call it a personal attention meeting. You know, that meeting that when a client's on retainer or they're on your annual service agreement, and rather than waiting for their 12-month review, they pick up the phone 3 months after their review and go, something's happened. I need to speak to you straight away. That's the phase we're talking about there when we say personal attention meeting. So the next line down is you get to write a bit of a story, a scenario, as we call it. So when you're in that phase, what do you think is happening for that client? So you can see here in the onboarding year for our new prospect pre-retiree couple, the scenario here is they're seeing slow progress on their advice. They're making some positive steps forward, but as all good clients that have received their first bit of advice, they miss some steps. Let's say this couple had some really strict budgeting goals, but they blew it out in month 2 and they're trying to get back on track. Because you did such a cracking job in your client experience, they have a thirst for relevant information. They want to get more involved in their finances now because they want to get ahead. They can see the value in financial advice. And the other thing that they've done in this year is they're commencing work with their solicitor to deliver on their estate planning goals. As part of your initial advice, you said, go and get your wills and power of attorney sorted. So they're going to do that. So this is where it gets a bit warm and fuzzy. And I know that this can be a little bit wishy-washy at times, but trust me, it's worth it. Because if you can address these things, as David Haints from Advisor Global Alpha might call it, these are the above the line things that are really going on in a client's mind. And if we can address these things, we can get the behavior change going that we needs to happen, so that when a client isn't with you, they're still making really informed money choices. So the client thoughts and feelings for these types of clients in their onboarding year, we're assuming that it's on their mind that they're having challenges with staying on track. We know that they're struggling with their budget. We can see it, and we know that that's on their mind. They're thinking about that. We know that they want to see progress. They're like, oh, I've just spent a fair chunk of money. Is it actually working? Is my finance, sort of happening the way that I was told it should happen? Am I ticking off the goals? We know that they're probably thinking it's a bit somber, it's a bit crap. I don't like talking about my estate, but I know that I need to do it. So I'm somewhat relieved that that Ash, my advisor, has given me the prompt to go and see a solicitor to get that done. And the other thing that we know is on their mind is they're taking more of an interest in their finances. As I said, probably because of the initial advice experience you've given them, they're taking more of an interest. So that's what's happening in their head as well.
Just before you jump ahead, sorry,
yeah,
to cut you off there.
Go for it.
I just wanted to quickly ask, just in case this is on somebody else's mind, because it's the first thing that jumps to my mind, is that when you're talking thoughts and feelings, how can you actually uncover like clients' thoughts and feelings, or what should we actually think about, or what should the participants actually think about in this stage?
Yeah, so the big underlying concept here is you've got to put yourself in that client's shoes. Now, what we've seen practices use maybe consumer research that's out there. There's tons of value of advice reports and client persona reports that say this is what people of this demographic expect from their advice experience, whether it be like the IFF value of advice report, whether it be, the ASIC report 547 or 457, what consumers really think about advice, that sort of stuff. We've seen practices use that. We've also seen practices just use their immense amount of experience to go, I know based on all the clients I've seen over my 30-year career that this is the sort of stuff that's on their mind when they're going through each phase. We've also seen practices use sort of people in their own business or people in their own family that meet their demographics. So they go, you know, I want to service people like you. Tell me what's on your mind when you think about financial advisors and when I take you through this experience. So they sort of run their own family or friend people through it. We also get people asking directly clients in their practice that fill this client persona. You know, what's on your mind as you're thinking through this, or they use their own sort of client surveys. So inspiration can really come from anywhere, but the key trick here is to try and remove your own biases and put yourself in the client's shoes and truly think, if I'm a pre-retiree couple at the age of 55 that's just received advice in this experience, and I'm sort of, for lack of a better term, on my own for the next 12 months, what do you think's going through my mind as I'm implementing that plan? Is that okay, Elise? Did I answer that all right?
Yeah, thank you.
So the next line item here is the jobs to be done. So some of you, if you've worked in marketing before or you've been through agile methodologies, would know this theory. But the jobs to be done is a really cool sort of way of going, right, if I know that's what's on my client's mind, what are the things a client wants me to do then? So what's the job I have to do for that client? What's the job they're asking me to do? Because they're not asking you physically, they're just behaving in a way that is prompting you to think, well, I could help them by doing something. That's what we mean by jobs to be done. So in this example, in the onboarding year, we believe the jobs to be done for this client, because they're having constant challenges to stay on track, are doing things like hold them to account. We know because they're taking more of an interest in their finances, a job to be done might be feed them information. They want to see progress and is it working? Well, let's proactively contact them, keep in touch and help them understand that they're okay. You know, when we launch Best Life in a month's time, one of the things that we think we can really help with the jobs to be done is if a client's thinking, I want to know I'm okay when I want to know, they can log on to our Best Life tool and check their on track score. So you can start to see how it starts to turn those thoughts and feelings into actual tangible actions for your practice to go, right, we got to nail those jobs for those clients. Now we're going that next level down. This is where your process starts to get involved. So remember, a client journey helps map the experience over here to your process. So all the steps in your practice align to the ideal experience or the jobs to be done that you think is for a client. So in this example, in the onboarding year for our pre-retiree couple, we're saying that they need to go and complete their non-financial implementation tasks. So if you're using Lumiant, they might be logging onto the Your Task module and saying, yeah, I've done my date night once a fortnight, tick it off. They've got to go and complete their legal process for their estate plan. We want them to upload their will and power of attorney to the vault. So we want to do that. And we want them to log into the portal to check they're on track once Best Life launches. So it's things like that. What are the things we want the clients to do? We now want to go down that next level down. So now let's think about functionality. So what are the touch points and devices my clients are going to use or experience as they move through this? Once again, might feel a little bit pedantic, but there's really cool devil in this detail. So if you think about it and how we think about it, okay, they're going to click on tasks. How are they going to interact with tasks? We're probably going to go through their laptop or their home computer. Okay, so if they're on that screen, what does it need to look like versus if they were on mobile or versus if they didn't have access and they needed to talk to you? So it changes the way that you design the tools that they interact with. So let's go for the solicitor appointment. We know that that's not really an experience that we can control, but say it was an advisor appointment, you can go, well, that's either a face-to-face or Zoom appointment. So if it was face-to-face, what do I need to do differently to if I was on Zoom? Do I need to have docs prepared differently? Do I need better visuals because I can't whiteboard anymore? It's stuff like that. When you start to think about the devices or the environments that they interact on, it shapes the way that you deliver your experience. Now, your practice actions here, for those of you that really love to get in the process, in the nitty-gritty, this will not scratch that itch for you, because I know that you want more detail than what's on here. But for the sake of a client journey, this is a very high level process map, because as you look through this phase, you can go, right, so if I want to feed them information because I know that's important to them, can I get my support staff or my marketing technology to proactively send important emails? Then there's a client action here. I need them to go and do their legal process and upload it to Vault. There might be another support action here. I want to send them task alert reminders because they promised me they'd be going on a date night once a fortnight, and they haven't logged into tasks to do that. So it's things like that. You start to actually now map out, well, who does what? And it's always important to go client, advisor, support, because obviously you want to know, or you want to allocate the right resource or the right person to the right interaction. And that's where you get your practice efficiency and scale. And the last thing you do is your tech stack. And you can probably stretch this to your tech stack or your documents and templates. That's where you go, right, now I've got a real clear process or path around what I need to do. What tools do I now need to make that happen? So do I need marketing technology like a MailChimp to proactively send my important emails? Do I need to upskill myself on your tasks so that I can set the date night task in there for them? Do I need to get your Vault ready to go so that I can get them to upload POAs into the Vault eventually? So it's stuff like that. That's where we talk about, you do your tech stack last, because then you can figure out, what do I actually need to make all of this happen?
Mark, I just wanted to throw a quick question out to the audience as well, just around how many times have you actually sent a survey to a client, whether it be like risk profile questionnaire, fact find, if you're using Lumiant, your life survey, investment preferences survey, and the client hasn't actually completed this, or they haven't actioned it, which is something that you need to do as part of your process. It'd be interesting to know, has this ever happened to anybody in the audience? If you could just pop a comment in the chat. Is this something that happens often? Not very often? I'm not seeing anything come through, so I'm hoping that means they're all getting completed, but I know in the past it's happened to me. Nope, that's fine. I thought I'd just check in just to see, because that's something that I guess you would really want to consider around when you're going through this as well, how you're actually communicating those surveys and the instructions that you need the client as well. Veronica. Yeah. So Veronica had one client who has completed 3 but needed constant follow-up as well, and have not done anything. So yeah, it definitely does happen. Look, I experienced that a lot in the past as well, and we hear it quite a bit in Lumiant as well. So I think that really just comes down to, how you're positioning it, how you're communicating it to your clients, but factoring all of that into here as well.
Yeah, great example, Elise. Now Veronica knows that the clients need following up with surveys and things like that. So you could ask those questions as you work through here and go, well, if I automatically know clients need following up, what lever can I pull? Is it a pre-positioning thing? Is it a marketing technology thing or an email technology thing that I constantly nudge them to do it? Is it feedback to give to Lumiant about the survey design because it's a little bit too in-depth? Whatever that might be, you now look at a client journey and go, it could be any one of those 3 things. What do I do to make sure that I can control it? So Elise, why don't we just for maybe 5 to 10 minutes max, I reckon, looking at time, we do a bit of a live example, and I might get you and the audience to help me out here, and maybe Ash, you might want to get involved. I know from your marketing background, this is something you always like doing. But let's fill out the progress meeting phase together, and we won't do this down to the nth degree. Just want to sort of work you through a phase live so that you can see the types of questions and the types of things that might come out when you're doing this with your team. So we've done the onboarding year. Now it's time for 12 months later. Ash as the advisor has to bring these clients, let's call them John and Jenny, back in for their progress meeting to review their progress and set them up for the next year. In this progress meeting or the scenario that we're playing with here, Ash as our advisor, the clients turn up, they're excited to see progression, as most clients do, right? I'm paying for this service. I'm really keen to see progression. As Ash is dealing with them and working through their progress meeting, we find out their goals and values largely remain the same. However, because he's done such a great job, they feel super confident to stretch their investment goals to retire sooner. They're like, hey, we had a bit of a blowout in the budget early in the 12 months, but we've got it on track. We actually feel really good and we think we could do more. So in that progress meeting, if I throw it out to the group, so Veronica, Danielle, everyone that's on the chat, feel free to answer my questions live and Elise will help you out. And Ash and Elise, feel free to jump in. If we're thinking about that progress meeting, what might be on that client's mind about that progress meeting as they go through it? I can do my best to write stuff live.
Oh, I'm gonna jump in here because, as you say, it's a topic close to my heart. All this, if they're excited, they're feeling like inspired and ready to kind of take it to the next level.
Yeah, great.
So they're gonna want more. I always find that like when you start progressing something good, you always want more and more and more of it. So you can anticipate they're gonna be chomping at the bit to take the next bite.
Yeah, lovely. Great example. Anything from the crowd? Elise, anything on your mind?
I guess sorry, I've gone blank.
So what if we go? I
feel like I'm the crowd. The crowd's gone blank. I've gone blank.
Crowd's gone blank. What if we go, okay, so they want to know, did it all work, right? So during the year, they wanted to know, is it working? Now they're like, did it actually work? Show me, prove it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Am I on track? Let's go to the jobs to be done. So let's do this one really quick. So if we think the client is thinking they're inspired and want to take it to the next level, what job might that turn into for us? What do you think we can do as the advice firm to help them take it to the next level in that progress meeting?
I think there's education in there, isn't there?
Yeah.
They want to be empowered to take the next step and the next best action.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Reconfirming and just like going back over what you did or where they were at and where they're going.
Yeah, totally. So you want to make sure that you reconfirm. Also, I think if we're answering the question, did it all work? Maybe we want to turn up or maybe a big job to be done is showing them it all worked or where it didn't, right? So that alludes to things like our modeling. Oh gosh, there we go. Formatting, right? So we want to do that. So if we do that, what are the client actions that we think they need to do? Well, first and foremost, let me add one out. They probably need to help us out, right? There's probably some pre-work that they need to do because you can't show them that it all worked without getting their wealth position up to date. And you don't want to necessarily get that live in the progress meeting now, because if you want to show them it all worked, you don't want to waste the time going, give me the information whilst I type it all away, and then I'm going to show you, and then I might be surprised about the outcome. So now I'm working backwards. So maybe there's something here around pre-work that they need to do at updating financials.
Yeah, I think that's also the case with if they want to stretch their investment goals to retire sooner. The job to be done there is probably their investment preferences, right? Because you need to have a look at how they want to progress those. Yeah. So you want to update investment preferences. Cool. Okay, so touch points and devices. This is a pretty simple one. So if they're going to update financials and investment preferences, they're probably going to do that on their computer, right, Ash? I reckon so.
Could be a tablet.
Yeah, they could do it on their tablet. So we need to make sure that our any way that we're asking them to do the financials, then if they're doing it on their computer or their tablet, meets the little landscape test. So is it a landscape orientation document as opposed to a portrait orientation document? We know that portrait suits better on a laptop, or a laptop's more landscape. So it's stuff like that. Yeah, great, Danielle. Progress meetings are focused on the performance of their portfolios. Interesting on how a progress meeting should be structured to cover off both personal and financial. So yeah, absolutely. So if you're going to do investment preferences, what do we need to do there? How do we need to update that? Question that we can work through, right? So practice actions. Well, clearly, if we want them to update financials, we need to do things like, firstly, invite them to the progress meeting or book the progress meeting. If we're asking anyone to do anything, we might want to consider how we pre-position financials. That might be an advisor thing. It might be a support staff thing.
Well, back to Danielle's comment, maybe that's something where you share the portfolio performance results prior to the meeting so they can educate themselves on that, ask any questions they might have, so that your performance chat is a lot less, rather than having to go through all the detail with them. So maybe you're creating there a bit of a document to share with them, and then you can focus the meeting on their goals and values and what needs to change in order for them to live their best life.
Great example, Ash. So this is the type of conversation why we say bring all your team in, because now you're having conversations around trade-offs of time, right? A progress meeting could be a 3-hour monster where you do investment performance, strategy performance, revisit values, goals, things like that. Or maybe you can all talk about, well, how do we best pre-position a client? Who's the best person to pre-position that client? How do we help them do all this stuff so that we can spend the meeting time doing X, Y, Z? Really cracking example. And then obviously from a tech perspective, the little Lumiant plug here is you might use your wealth. You might use, well, sounds like we're using investment preferences here.
You've likely got your platform as well.
Yeah, you would have your advice platform or your CRM, because that would tell you that you need to book John and Jenny in first. So that needs to be all lined up. You've probably got an email template in here around inviting them. So you need to get your emails set up.
While you're just typing that up as well, something I was just going to throw out is just that around this point, it also, is it a good idea to actually do a bit of an audit on all of the actual tech that you're using in the practice, so you know what you're trying to slot in and consider as well?
100%. In fact, not even just as you should do an audit. I think a natural thing that we see practices feel and see as they go through this is, as they fill out the tech stack bit down the bottom and go, I need XYZ tech to do this, they realize that they're probably paying for tech that isn't showing up anywhere in their client journey. And they ask themselves, well, do I actually need it? Could other tech that I am using in this actually facilitate that? Or they might have just forgotten about it and go, oh, no, we bought that tech for a certain reason. Where does it fit? And if it fits, or maybe worse, they've got a gap and they go, shit, I need to find tech that helps me with this. But yeah, absolutely. A tech audit comes off the back of it for sure. So you can see there that it's a really thorough process. We've done a really quick example in 2 minutes with a bit of a pre-filled one. Now, my slip of the finger on my mouse scroller probably showed a little bit of it earlier, but what we're going to supply you with after this is Ash, Elise, and I have got together and done a bit of a full one on those 3 phases. So you can see how one might actually fully come to life as a end-to-end for this client through their onboarding year progress meeting, personal attention meeting. And as Elise alluded to, we'll give you a blank one. So if you want to pick this up and do this exercise because you're starting to think, right, so I actually want to take this on because I'm scaling up my business. It needs to be less reliant on me. I need other people to know what they're doing. I think I've got inefficiencies in my tech stack, or I want to see if I can plug Lumiant in a little bit better. Then here's a template for you that we've gone through today. Now, it's just got 3 phases on the slide. My recommendation to you would be start at the start of your process. So when a client first reaches out, we typically call that the introduction phase when they're introduced to your practice. You might move through into your pre-vet call, move into your discovery meeting, strategy meeting, advice presentation, progress meeting, all that sort of stuff. So what you would do is just copy or duplicate the slide, however many of them that you need, so that you can get through all 10, 15, 12, however many phases you've got in your advice process. There's no clear answer, but I think one of the safe answers that I'll give you is it's likely not just 3 phases. And don't try and cram it all into one. The document's complex enough at font size 4 and 5, I think. So make sure that you just space it out nice and clearly as you go through it.
Perfect. Should we jump to some questions and answers, Mark?
Yeah, sure.
Yep. All right, fantastic. So I guess, as Mark has mentioned, there's probably quite a bit going on in your mind at the moment, trying to sort of digest everything there, and probably looks a little bit complex until you sort of start to sit down and to go through and have a bit of a think. So it would be a good idea to use the other people in your practice to help support you, sit down, have a good brainstorm session, and actually go through and start to look at the client experience together. But yeah, let's throw it out to the audience. If you've got any questions from what you have seen, anything that comes to mind, please jump in the chat, and yeah, just anything that pops to your mind, please jump out. While I wait for those to come through, Mark, I might throw a quick question out to you. Is there a best practice with this?
I'd love to say yes. Here's one that I prepared earlier. Follow, everything will be fixed for you. The answer is no. There's, even in the template that we're giving you, we think that's best practice as a template for us because it facilitates all the natural conversations, and we think it's a great template for you to use as an advice practice. However, there's many client journey templates that go into more depth than that. We think this is about the right amount of depth for a pretty standard advice practice in Australia or America. But in terms of, is there a best practice and client journey? The short answer is no. Everyone will believe different things around each phase. And I mean everyone by every business, but even inside a business, every individual there will go, oh, I actually think a client might feel like this, or a client might do that. And I actually think we could do this a little bit differently. So to Danielle's example, some people will want to prioritize investments in a progress meeting. Others will go, you know what, I think we can get that done elsewhere. Let's prioritize a different conversation, as an example, right? So there isn't necessarily a best practice. There's only the one that works best for your clients and your business. And like any good business decision, especially when you've got a large number of people in your business. So, as soon as you've got more than one advisor or accountant in a practice, you're going to disagree on something. But the key here obviously is bringing it all together and go, look, I sort of disagree on this bit, but let's find a compromise here for our clients because our clients want to do this. So it becomes that sort of uniting view. And that's the key to all of this. You wouldn't do this unless you're looking for a consistent experience and a consistent process across your entire practice so that you can really get your efficiencies of scale.
Any other questions to come through the chat before we move on to what's next? Anything else? No. In the interest of time, I might just jump into what's next in case, and yeah, still feel to pop some chats in as I go. But essentially, I guess from here, this is where it goes back on to yourself to start to put a bit of an action plan in place. So take the client journey away, set some time aside to have a bit of a brainstorm with the team. Start from the beginning with your client journey. So what that first touch point is, with your clients that you'll have, and work your way right through to the end. And once you have your client journey map, you can also use or compare it with or to validate it with our Lumiant process guide as well, just to see if there's anything you've perhaps missed. Right, so no other questions have come through as yet. So just to do a big thank you, thanks for joining us today. Just to reconfirm, you will get a recording from today's session. That'll come via email. You're also going to access or receive access to the Lumiant templates. So you'll get those before anybody else from joining us today. And you'll also get the draft example along the way as well. We have our support center. So for any extra resources, we've got our Lumiant support center. You can access all of our guides here. And we do have some more upcoming webinars as well. So each fortnight, there will be some webinars coming through that you can join and you can register. And just going to quickly chat. Oh, thanks, Ash. Look, and if anything else comes through from today, obviously there's a lot to digest as well. So you can reach out to our support center by just reaching out, raising a request. Anything that comes to mind of today's session, please send a request through and we'll jump on and we'll help you with that as well.
Always happy to help, Elise. I think Danielle and Veronica probably hit the nail on the head with their responses in that. There's probably a ton of food for thought and a ton to digest, and deliberately so, right? We really believe in getting this stuff mapped out because we know that your businesses will get the scale that you always tell us that you're trying to achieve with using Lumiant by doing something like this. We also know that it's complex. It's a complex process because you deliver a complex process and you do it so simply and beautifully, but it's really hard to go through. So as always, if you've got any questions, you can probably tell all three of us on this call love talking about this stuff. This is the stuff we love doing because we can see the impact of how Lumiant plays on your client experience. So it helps us learn and it gives us the satisfaction to know that we're supporting you better. So please get us involved as it all happens.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks, Mark, Ash, for joining, and thank everybody else for spending your lunchtime with us and joining as well. Again, if you need any assistance off the back of this, please reach out. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much, guys.
Bye, everyone.